Hey folks, Jack Spirko here with Miyagi Mornings episode, what is it, 57? I think it's 57. Whatever it is, it's that episode. Anyway, today we're going to answer a question that came in again from the MeWe group. If you want to participate in suggesting topics for Miyagi Mornings, you can email me or whatever, but the place that I tend to go on a daily basis and kind of scan through and say, what do I want to talk about today if I don't have something already on my mind? Is the MeWe post that is sticky to the top of my profile at MeWe. There's a link in the video notes down there. You can click on that. You can sign up for MeWe. You can friend me up, and you can post there. And all you got to do is go to my profile, look at the top. So what we're going to answer today is a question that I get. I bet half a dozen times a month, and I bet I've answered it 50 times in 50 different ways. I'm going to try to do a one-size-fits-all answer for this question that everybody thinks their system is, or their situation is unique. And it is, what should I grow? And then, because I want to grow, fill in the blank. And that could be trees, vegetables, summer crops, winter crops, bushes, berries, vines, pasture mix, cover crop. It doesn't matter. Like over and over and over, you get the same questions. And this is one of those things, I think that people get into this mindset of, well, like, but my place is different. My place is unique. Well, the truth is, most people live in the place where most people live, and your situation is not that unique. About 80% of the people in the United States live in about 20% of the landmass. So if you're part of that 80%, your situation is not that unique. Now, some of you live up in the above the northern the highest northern latitudes up above the Arctic Circle or something, or you live in the tropics, that might be a little bit different. But the solution I'm going to give you works exactly the same, no matter where you live. The key is you have to define your goals first, and your wants, your needs, your desires, your likes and dislikes. So the first thing you do is you start out with, yes, we need to fill that blank in. I want to grow trees, fruit trees, nut trees, ornamental trees, fodder trees, bee trees, whatever. So we define that. I want to grow vegetables. Okay, great. When? So I'm going to grow spring into summer, summer into fall, fall into winter, whatever, right? So what's the seasonality of it, and what is your climate like? And then the next thing is, well, what do you like? So if cucumbers do really good where you are, but nobody in your house likes cucumbers for whatever reason, you're weird, you're anti-cucumber, then you shouldn't grow cucumbers. So look at what you like to eat. All right. Then look at your USDA zones. It amazes me. The biggest one is, well, trees. What trees can I grow? Well, where are you at? Zone 7. Pretty much anything you want in citrus. Right? And there might be some that are a little bit more attuned to your climate. But remember, your climate is not just a climatic zone for temperature. That's your 8, 7, 6, 5, 8675309, whatever, right? That will dictate your kind of your macro. Then you need to kind of look at, well, do I get a lot of rain? Do I get a little bit of rain? Are my soils primarily acidic or alkaline? How much of that can I affect change on? If you're growing a garden, you can, a small backyard garden, you can have incredible influence on the soil. It's pH, it's mineral content. I mean, you can dial it in as much as somebody running a hydro system if you really want to. You get a soil test, you can bring in supplemental nutrient, minerals, you can alter pH, what have you, because you're a giant on the landscape in a garden-sized situation. You're putting in a 2-acre food forest. You're smaller than an ant on the landscape. You've moved past human scale. So now you have to accept more about what is versus what you can change. Right? On the scale of permanence, we've moved ratcheted way up. The broader the landscape, the longer it takes, and the less influence we as individuals can have on it. We get into very large, broad-scale landscapes. This is why we get into livestock. Because you're not going to alter 1,000 acres of topsoil and the chemistry and the compounds and whatever in it. But 1,000 cattle can. And those people that think you can restore those ecosystems without livestock, they're in denial of biology and chemistry. Okay? Let's move back to answering this question now. So we figure out kind of our limitations. And for perennials, if I were you, I would say, let's say I'm in zone 8, and this says hardy to zone 8, I might try it, but I wouldn't rely on it. I would ratchet down your winter side by one zone, meaning that if you are in zone 8 and you want to rely on something to be there long term in your ecosystem that is a perennial, then you need stuff that is hardy to zone 7. If you're in zone 7, you need stuff that's hardy to zone 6. If you're in zone 6, you need stuff that's hardy to zone 5. And you can moderate this a little bit. If you're like at the edge of 8 and 9, your 8s are probably good. If you're at the bottom of 8, you really need to be looking at kind of very, very hardy into zone 7. So that's kind of where, so when you're like, well, what apple trees can I grow? Dude, what apples do you like? Go look at all the apples that are available. Make sure that they're hardy to your zone and plant the freaking apple trees. Don't make this, because this is the biggest thing. I think people are making this harder than it is. Let's talk about cover crop. This isn't hard either, guys. Look, if it's in the summer, you can start out with like buckwheat and cowpea. If it's in the winter, you can do any kind of winter hardy grain like triticale or rye or barley, daikon radish, purple top turnip, and a good winter pea. That's a great mix. You can go into veggies, and whatever. Just like diversity of things, and then just you have to ask yourself, how, if it's a cover crop, see, cover crop and pasture mix are different. Pasture we want to manage long term. Cover crop we want to do a thing, go away. What is it going to take to make it go away? White chiasode is great. Huge, huge root mass. May not want it in your garden. It will literally choke out everything, and it will probably hang on longer than you want it to, right? But if you look at things like barley and wheat and rye, they're a lot easier to just cut them and drop them and plant into the root system, and you're not going to have much of a problem. If you're planting something in the summer and you're going to plant a fall garden, you want something that's going to be easy to knock back when you're ready to put your fall crops in. So you just figure that out. And the stuff that I just gave you is a pretty good way to go. When it comes to your vegetables, what do you eat? What do you eat, and what do you have a long enough growing season for? If you want to grow something that has 120 days from set out to harvest, and you have a 100-day growing season, it's probably a bad choice. You might be able to pull it off with starting it inside early and putting it out and all, but you know, look at your growing season, and then you fit your annuals into that growing season, and can you do season extension? Some things are really easy to do season extension for because they're already somewhat tolerant and they're small. Large things are not easy to extend your season with because you have to basically build a house over top of them, right? So one of the things I would say is, and I say this about so many aspects of what I teach, keep a food diary. I think we should all be journaling far more than we do, because when you journal, you contemplate, and if there's anything the people in this country don't do enough of is contemplation. Everyone else will run their mouth and talk a bunch of shit about things they don't know anything about on social media, and they talk to each other in ways that if you talk to somebody like that in person, right in the freaking mouth is what you would get. It happens all the time. I see it every day. But I'll tell you, a big part of it is we don't contemplate. Contemplate involves, here's this piece of information, I'm going to ruminate on it mentally and then come up with something. When you contemplate, you're less likely to be a dick to somebody because you think about what you're saying before you say it. And your goal goes from telling that person what a dumbass they are to actually being somewhat helpful if it's any way possible that you can. Right? If you want to convince somebody of something, telling them they're a dickhead is not a good way to get that done. Okay? So we need more contemplation. So keep a food diary. What do you eat? And then when you're making food or you're cooking and you're thinking, boy, I wish I had, add that to the list. And then what of those things can you grow? And then what is the timing to grow those things? It's that simple. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'll continue to come out with, here's 5 things that you never thought about growing, or here's 10 herbs everybody should grow, or here's 20 new vegetable varieties to try out, or whatever. That's wonderful. But in the end, when people ask this question, it's far more important to me that I teach you how to fish than give you a fish. Okay? Because I want you to be able to sit down with a bunch of seed catalogs or plant catalogs or go online to a nursery, and I want you to be able to examine what's there. Look at your land, look at your size, your space, your scape, your growing season, your climate, how dry it is, how wet it is, can you irrigate, can you not irrigate, how deep your soils are, just look at all, the reason I can't just give you a list and say you should grow this Somebody that asked this question said, I only live about an hour and a half east of you. If you live in an hour and a half east of me, you might as well live in northern Florida. It rains a hell of a lot more than it does here. Your soil's sandy, my soil's clay and alkaline. You can grow pine trees without trying. You have to put a pine tree on life support to get it to grow here, unless it finds a micro niche. Right? You're in a totally different world than me. If you have a backyard a couple blocks from me, and your soil's 4 foot deep before you hit the rock formation that's under my house, you're in a totally different world than me. If you're managing a garden that's, 10 4x8 beds that you're going to intensively manage, you're in a totally different situation than somebody that's just doing kind of natural gardening. All of that will change what will do really, really well for you. And one of the best things you can do is overplant. Overplant, 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 and then identify the things that do well for you. I know, for instance, now that like the squash for me to grow in my climate and in my backyard and in my environment is Trumbushino zucchini. And I can tell you it will probably do fantastic for you because if it lives here, it'll probably live anywhere. But do you know how I found that out? Not by reading books, because plants don't read books. The pests that prey on the plants, they don't read the books either. I found that out by growing like 10 different squashes over the years and saying, this is the one squash to rule them all. And I don't grow it exclusively because some disease, some pest, something may eventually adapt and begin to really damage it. Irish potato famine, anybody? So I keep trying other squashes because I know sooner or later either I'll find another one, or as I build my soil and my nutrient profile adapts and comes up and becomes stronger, things that used to get knocked down by pests won't. So experiment, be bold, be brave. And then the last thing, especially growing trees for food production, what do commercial growers grow successfully within 50 miles of where you live? You want to grow pears? Does anybody grow pears commercially where you live? If the answer is no, it may be a difficult crop for you to grow. You can still try it, right? If the answer is yes, what do they grow? Call them up and ask them. Find a small, orchard producer that has pick your own or call them and say, hey, what do you grow? What works best for you? They'll tell you. They don't see you as a threat. Look at what you eat. Look at what other people grow in your area. Look at the macro of your climate and go at least one back. I know people all worry about climate change. Let me tell you something. With the exception of it gets too hot and it scorched earth and you don't get enough water and you're not drought proofed, with the exception of that, if your climate zone is one higher this year because it had an unusually warm year, you're at 7 and you got an 8, it will have almost no detrimental effect on you whatsoever. If you have stuff that is hardy to zone 8, and you get a winter event like we just got in Texas, which takes your low end temperature, and basically we spent a week being zone 6, and you have stuff that's not hardy to zone 6, it's going to die. So that's why you should hedge to the backside of your zone, at least one zone. If you can do 2, even better. It doesn't mean don't plant things, but see, when it comes to perennials, you're looking at a core and the nice. And your core should be made up of things that can swing in either direction. At least 1 up and 2 down would be even better. With that, keep them coming, guys. Remember, MeWe is the place to submit content for this. Tomorrow, maybe we'll talk a little bit about, because we ain't done it yet this week, cryptocurrency and a way you can get it for free just by using some really cool websites. Take care.